What's up? Welcome in. Hoge Jahns back with you. Our midweek episode. As we head into week 2, we flip the script a little bit. Always love these midweek episodes because we can, tie up the loose ends on the first game and move ahead to the Houston Texans here in week 2. What's going on, Johnsy?
A little bit of both. And it's a big matchup. CJ Stroud and Caleb Williams. I don't know how much you get into the billing, the pump up for these games, but I like it. I like when you have two marquee quarterbacks going up against each other.
Yeah, this one, I remember we were
talking. I called Caleb Williams marquee. I'm probably getting away ahead of myself, but he is the first pick.
Well, he's marquee. He hasn't played like that yet. It's only been one game, but he is one of the biggest names in the game right now, being the number 1 overall pick. And that's why this football game is on Sunday Night Football, featured in a big window. When we were predicting the schedule back in May, this was one that we had circled as a possibility to go into prime time. And that's how it played out. I mean, depending on how you want to look at this, I know we don't talk about it a lot, but the Bears are playing the quarterback they could have drafted a year ago had they stayed at the number 1 pick back in 2023. Instead, Ryan Poles pulled off a massive trade, and it has all led to Caleb Williams, and no one's really upset about that. But it will be interesting to see these two quarterbacks go head to head. I think before we dive into that, we are going to have Kevin Fishbain join us here, but we do want to talk about some of the storylines that have continued to linger, including a surprise injury we were not expecting to be revealed on Monday by the head coach. But again, let's take care of business. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at Adam Hoge, at Adam Jahns, and the show account is at Hoge and Jahns, at Hoge and Jahns there for you. And you can go to hogeandjahns.com and get the merch, including this quarter zip I'm wearing today. Johnsy's got the long sleeve tee on, all of that stuff available for you at hogeandjahns.com. Always love seeing the gear out and about when we're mingling with the people. And should we start with Rome's injury?
Have to.
This is a big one.
So kind of a surprise from Matt Eberflus yesterday. Then there was some reports. So let's go back. The plays in which it happened. All right, it's 2 plays in the 4th quarter against the Titans. 2 blocking assignments for Rome Odunze. There was a screen to the right to Velus Jones Jr. on the first play of these 2, where he gets basically tackled into Rome's legs, gets rolled up. Doesn't look good, looks in pain, but he plays on. The next play, it was another screen to DeAndre Swift. I forget, but he's blocking again.
Yeah, went the other direction.
Went the other direction, on the side of the field. Another blocking assignment from Odunze. And this time he comes up limping. So didn't feel right, played on, and then you see him leave the game, did not return after that.
Yeah. And the diagnosis, although as we're recording on Wednesday morning, we have not heard this from Flus yet, but reportedly.
But we kind of have.
Yeah.
He was on the
Rich
that's
Eisen
right. He
did another interview, right? Yeah. What did he say on Rich Eisen? I missed this.
So the early reports, it's sprained MCL. Flus confirmed that.
Okay.
Early reports had him as week to week, but Flus said he was day to day and did not rule out Sunday against the Texans. I guess we'll see how this week plays out. Maybe there's some gamesmanship going on. I think we all enjoy that during the work week from head coaches. But he did describe Odunze as a tough guy.
Yeah, all I take out of that is he's healthy enough to play some games with on the injury report this week. Now, that opens up the door, and this is my understanding too. I mean, I think Rome, grade 1 MCL, it's the best news possible if you're going to have an MCL injury. And I know of players that, have played through grade 1 MCLs that have not missed any time. I do think it's important, though, to consider the position. If you're an offensive lineman, you can put those braces on your knee, and, even a tight end where your route running doesn't necessarily involve, the craziest cuts But when you're a wide receiver and you got to run crisp routes and cut hard on those knees, I feel like this can affect you a little bit more than other positions. So I just think that this will be an ongoing conversation this week. John's Ian, okay, even if he's healthy enough to play, to be out there, should he be on a pitch count? And how careful should you be? Because the last thing, I'm willing to sacrifice a game here, Rome Odunze,
absolutely,
to make sure he's much more effective the rest of the year. And you don't want to put him in harm's way. Not that the Bears would ever do that. I mean, if he's cleared to go on Sunday, I'm sure it's because he's been cleared by the medical staff that he's healthy enough to go. But I would just err on the side of caution.
But you still have to be mindful of him if he does play. You mentioned the pitch count. Maybe he doesn't have to block for Velus Jones Jr. anymore, or not as much as he did in the previous game. There were a lot of screens used by the Bears in week 1. Maybe less of those assignments, maybe more routes run, maybe a couple easy targets out there for the rookie wide receiver. But you're right. He's too important not only to this year, but next year, 2 years from now. He's a top 10 pick. We've said it a few times. If it wasn't for Caleb Williams on this roster, we'd be talking a lot more about Rome Odunze and everything he's doing.
Right. Let's say, Caleb wasn't here and Rome didn't get hurt on Sunday, but he had 1 catch for 4 yards still. That's the storyline in Arizona right now with Marvin Harrison Jr. Everybody's freaking out in Arizona because the guy they spent months and months and months talking about drafting and getting, I believe, had the same stat line, 1 catch for 4 yards. So, they gotta figure that out this week. But I would definitely err on the side of caution with Rome Odunze. Will continue to follow that storyline, see if he practices the next few days. I would guess I'd be slightly surprised if he's out there practicing in full today, but we'll keep an eye out on that as always. What else did you want to hit before we bring in Fish?
I'm going to ask you about this. Cole Kmet's playing time. You just sat down with him on the 85 and CHGO. He played less than 50% of the snaps. Yeah, I think we're all surprised by his usage. You talked to him. What's your feel on the situation?
Yeah, I mean, look, one of the reasons why Cole is a captain on this team is because he's very, very good at articulating what he wants to say while protecting his teammates, being that spokesperson for the locker room, right? And he's always been that way. And it's, I think, a big reason why he's a captain right now. If you didn't see it, I would encourage you to go check it out. It's on social media, and it's, the whole episode is up on the 85 with Cole Kmet YouTube channel. And it is an interesting discussion, but to kind of summarize what he said, I mean, he starts by just talking about how healthy he feels like he is right now, and that how he still thinks he's one of the top tight ends in the league. And it's very obvious to me that he feels like he can contribute more than he did on Sunday, both in terms of just snap count and also targets. Now, I will say, I think there were some plays in there designed for him that the ball never got there. I think that that botched handoff with DeAndre Swift, to me, that was a pass play. And I don't know this for sure, but it might have been designed for Cole too. I don't. So there was a bunch of sort of just mucky stuff like that happened throughout the game. And if you watch the snaps and the passing plays where Cole actually ran routes, I thought he was open. So I think, and that's another thing Cole referenced in when he was in his answer. He's like, he leans on the tape as, what can kind of speak for him. And I think he felt really good with how he played and how he feels right now. But then he went on to say, everybody in that locker room needs to check their egos at the door. And you don't always have to be happy with the decisions that are made on game day. But you got to keep the greater good of the team in mind. So it was a very good answer from him. And now I'll just interject with my own thoughts. Okay. So this is not stuff Cole said on the show. This is now me interjecting, kind of piecing together what I saw on Sunday, what I watched on tape, and then what I heard from Cole yesterday on the show. You're paying that guy $50 million. He needs to play more. Now, I think his snap count last year was up towards 95%. That's probably too much. He took a beating by the end of the year. And I think everybody involved in this thing wanted to see that come down a little bit. But not to 48% of the snaps. And to me, it's not even just about the snap counts, but I will say I would personally like to see that number more in like the 70s, at least. Like let's talk 75% of the snaps. That's a number that makes sense to me. Okay. But beyond that, let's not forget about this guy as a pass catcher. I know they brought in Gerald Everett, and that's supposed to take off some of the load from Cole Kmet, but this guy didn't have a drop last year. He is a very friendly target for your rookie quarterback. Wouldn't you agree with that, Johns?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you got to find a way and that's, to me, that's on the offensive coordinator. But I will, like I said off the top, I did see routes where he was open. And I don't even, if there was a different answer for each one of those plays about why the ball didn't get to him. Maybe one of them was because Caleb didn't see him. Maybe one of them was because the protection breakdown. Maybe one of them was because that handoff there was a confusion in the backfield at the mesh point on the handoff. But whatever those reasons are, that stuff needs to get fixed here really quickly because the Bears got to have a tough game on Sunday night.
We were critical of Shane Waldron, like rightfully so. One area, I want to repeat this, where I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt is that he was facing a first-time defensive coordinator. So I'm guessing he saw some things where they tried to adjust and maybe get away from the game plan. Because I just can't believe that the Bears went into this game with a game plan thinking Cole Kmet's going to play less than 50% of the snaps. I just think things got away from the way I felt covering the game. Is that things offensively got away from whatever the Bears wanted to do initially. They were trying to adjust to the pressure they were getting up front, and they're trying to adjust to what Denard Wilson was sending at Caleb Williams. So there's that back and forth that happens, the X's and O's back and forth that happens during the game where you have to adjust on the fly. So it'll be interesting to hear from Shane Waldron himself on Thursday. We'll follow up on this on Friday's podcast, but it's interesting when one of your best players plays that little and the offensive production is that bad. I mean, there were like long stretches where he wasn't even on the field, where we're like making jokes on the sideline. Like, where is he? Did he even play? Like, is he hurt? What's going on? So it was curious at most as that game played out.
Well, I think that's maybe the most important point of what Cole said yesterday on the 85, because I know there's been some like questioning about, well, is he dealing with an injury? Like, because it really just doesn't make sense that he didn't play more. But, you heard it from him himself. He feels as good as he's felt at the, early on in the season. And so that's not the issue. And so if he's healthy, you got to get him on the field and you got to get him the ball. I don't like that we're having these conversations already in week 1, but because it is a new offense, now it's not a drastically new offense, but it is a mostly new offensive coaching staff. And there are a lot of new pieces. And you do have sort of a mix of guys Shane Waldron knows well. It's one of the reasons why Gerald Everett's here. Mixing with guys he's probably still learning, even if they were already here. You do have to give him a little bit of leeway to work all this stuff out. Maybe the first month of the season. But I do think it's a crucial time, right? Like, because you don't want to see these issues persist very long, but you at the same time want to give them the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, you're new here. How quickly can you get this figured out with the rookie quarterback?
You don't want to be sitting here talking about an offense that produced 93 passing yards.
Yeah, I mean, it was just bad across the board.
Yeah.
I mean, name an area that was good on offense.
On offense?
Just on offense.
No turnovers.
That's it.
Cairo Santos, he counts.
Yeah, special teams. By the way, I guess another small plug for the 85 because Cairo was the guest yesterday.
Ooh.
I learned something I never knew before. Did you know that the kickers, they have to kick with brand new balls every single game?
I know they have to be different balls. I didn't know they were brand new balls.
They bring brand new balls in, and you have 45 minutes on the clock to break them in. And the equipment staff goes nuts for 45 minutes doing a process that usually takes weeks.
I had no idea. That's fascinating.
It was so interesting to hear Cairo talk about this.
So that explains why they kick so much pregame.
Yeah. Part of it's breaking in the footballs.
I had no idea. I know their balls were separate from the quarterback's balls. I mean,
yeah.
They're getting away here from a little bit. But I had no idea they were that new.
Yeah. No, they're new balls every single week.
Ball bags.
The quarterbacks can use the balls they practice with. The kickers can't. And apparently the reason is just the kickers have gotten too good.
So there's a strange rule.
Yeah. I never knew that. But it was one of many fascinating things in that episode. So anyway, go check it out. All right, so that's the issue with the Plains. By the way, to me, this isn't just about Cole. I mean, I think there's other adjustments. I don't know. Do you have Velus active this week?
No.
Because there's always politics too that come into this, right? Whether it's front office getting involved, the locker room, just how things are viewed, right? I don't know how you can look those players in the eye and say that like Velus deserves to be active over Roschon Johnson right now.
I think this is another storyline for this week, and I'm sure the Bears will do their best to defend Velus publicly, but you think about the locker room a little bit, right? Like, sure, you remove him from special teams, but is that enough for a message?
Well, and I was thinking about this yesterday too. If Shane Waldron was really behind Velus moving the running back, or at least a big, acceptor of the idea, and has been impressed with his move to running back, or even Chad Morton, his running backs coach, which we've already seen him on Hard Knocks fighting for Velus and saying, I'm going to fight for this guy more than anybody else in that, in the room. Don't you sit there this week, like in your personnel meeting, and go, well, yeah, I know he muffed that kick, but what does that have to do with running back? Like, he still was productive the times he touched the ball on Sunday. Like, what does that have to do with the offense? So take him off the kick returns. Leave DeAndre Carter there. But why does that mean he needs to be inactive from the offense? I'm just saying, like, I'm guessing that's how some of those conversations go. The offensive coaches must be like, well, I don't know what that has to do with us.
I'm trying to remember how many carries Khalil Herbert had.
Well, that's the other thing, though. I feel like if you're going to put Velus on the field for 4 plays and give him the ball every single time, and I'm not sure if that's exactly how it came out. How many offensive snaps did he get?
I'll pull it up.
Because he got 3 touches overall.
Herbert had 2 carries for 4 yards on 6 plays. Velus Jones Jr. was on the field for offense for 4 snaps, and he got 2 carries for 11 yards.
And a catch.
And a catch.
So this is exactly what I'm talking about, though. So first of all, Khalil Herbert needs to be on the field more than 6 plays. I'm not saying he's Saquon Barkley, but he's a better running back than somebody who gets 6 snaps a game. All right, and then if you're going to put Velus on the field for 4 snaps and he's going to touch the ball 3 times, that's kind of obvious. What's going on when number 12 comes on the field?
That probably goes back to the Shane Waldron conversation. It's the usage of these players.
Yeah.
Like,
all right,
Caleb Williams, sorry, before we get to Kevin here, like, Caleb Williams targeted Keenan Allen 11 times. Rome Odunze 4 times. Keenan Allen's still a good receiver, but some things seem a bit off. It seems like Shane Waldron has some work to do this week.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things, and I would have thrown Rome Odunze in there too, although that injury might, you know, make that situation easier for Shane to worry
Work with
about. But
this
I
week.
would have liked to see Rome much more involved on Sunday than he was, especially when you go to 12 personnel and he's just off the field. Um, However, Rome did still play 77% of the snaps, but that has a lot to do with, um, you know, how often you have that many wide receivers in, and then DJ Moore got banged up, and Keenan Allen got banged up too in that game. All right, let's bring in Kevin Fishbain, who can hopefully sort all of this out for us. This is why we lean on the Fish Man. He is here. How are
He's
you, buddy?
watched the film. What's up, Kev?
What's up, guys? Hoge, you clearly listened to my Monday live room because you and I had the exact same comment on Monday afternoon, which was it's not so much an issue with the play calling, it's the personnel, as you guys were just talking about. And I do wonder, like, you always that phrase, you sometimes just kind of need to get punched in the mouth. They got punched in the mouth. And I think that whatever ideas they had personnel wise might just be thrown out the window, and they'll get back to whatever they think is best in week 2.
Yeah, and I also think it's important to point out that this was a tough week 1 test from a schematic standpoint. You're always going to see new things compared to what you saw in the preseason, but this was more of an exotic type defense that you had to adjust to. And then on top of it, it was like worst case scenario up front. When your weak,
the matchups were bad.
Yeah, the weakness is on your offensive line matching up against the strengths of the Titans defensive line. And we knew that going into it, but T'Vondre Sweat was way more impactful in his first ever game than I thought. And I knew he was a good player. The issues with him, remember before the draft, was his weight fluctuation was an enormous red flag. And then he got a DUI during the draft process. And the Titans took a hell of a gamble to still take him in the second round, because I thought teams might just not draft him at all. And now it looks like it's paying off, because that was a hell of a debut for him. And then you add Jeffrey Simmons to the mix. I mean, that was worst case scenario, really, for those matchups up front, Fish. And I feel like, so if you can take any solace, like, it should be easier this week from that standpoint.
Yeah, I wrote that in this article. It's up this morning because I was like, all right, we all saw live the interior offensive line didn't look great. So then you go back and watch, and it's like 93 every time, 98 every time. And I wonder if 2 months from now, 3 months from now, we're talking about Sweat being a Pro Bowl type player. We already know that Simmons is that caliber. Like, we could be talking about the Titans interior defensive line as being one of the better ones in the league. And then you go back and be like, all right, I said this to Johnsy yesterday, like, it wasn't a lot of plays that were off, but I was hoping for more from Tevin Jenkins. And the problem for Tevin is, like, I just don't know what the margin of error is when you are in play for a massive contract. Like, we all know when he's playing at his best at a high level consistently, I mean, how many guards in the league are better than him? Not that many. So I thought he had some really, like, Tevin Jenkins. The first play of the game, I thought, was just your prototypical Tevin Jenkins moving people around. But when watching it back and seeing where some of the penetration came from, like, look, he was still not as leaky, if you will, as the other guys in the interior, but still, you want to be able to count on him. And I know I'm raising the bar really high for him, but when you're talking about lots of money, you got to raise that bar.
So when you watch every single snap of Caleb Williams, like a day or during not long after Eberflus is talking about his footwork being a bit off, what did you see? Like, how much did that happen throughout the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was trying to think about, like, I wrote this, that one of the perks of covering the Bears, as long as the three of us have, is we know bad quarterback play when we see it. We've been through the ringer.
Come on.
And you watched it and you're just like, it just didn't feel as bad as it was. And I wonder if, like, it's because we're going into it with a higher to use my bar metaphor again, like Caleb Williams is a Heisman Trophy winning, undisputed #1 pick. So we are going to give him a little bit more benefit of the doubt than we did to a Mitch Trubisky who didn't have much of a college resume, than we did to a Justin Fields who fell to 11th in the draft. So like Caleb Williams going to get that. And then we also watched it in person in preseason and camp. And John's too, where you're talking about the footwork, like one of our biggest takeaways all summer was how precise he is with his throws. And you did see that in his completions, right? Like some of those out routes to Keenan Allen, and then the throw on the run to DJ Moore, like it is right there on the money every time. So when you see him overthrow an open Keenan Allen, missing DeAndre Swift in the flat, it's like, okay, these seem you're kind of you kind of go to, okay, this is just a little mechanical thing that can get fixed. Like you just don't feel as doomsday about it as you might have with other quarterbacks who might not have had the resume that he has.
Yeah, I think like I agree with what Flu said Monday, which was he thought Kayla was still seeing things well, and it was just the footwork that was off. And I like how you put that, Kev. Like we know those sort of moments where it's like, oh no, he just doesn't really have any idea what he's looking at, or his brain just completely, like what we saw on the other side with Will Levis chucking the ball up for a pick 6. Like he was taking care of the football, Caleb was, and I think he was just a little sped up, which is understandable. It's the NFL, and it's real live bullets for the first time. It's not the preseason anymore, and I think it's understandable to be a little jacked up, which I think is what happened on that deep ball to Keenan Allen. He's going to hit that. That's not a play I'm worried about. He will hit that in the future. And I just the thing that surprised me the most was the inaccuracy at times, because that's not what we've seen a ton of in camp. And I think it coincides or is backed up by what Flu said, which was his footwork was just a little off. And I think everything was just happening a little bit quicker, and it's just a little bit of an adjustment that he has to make here. And it doesn't all have to be fixed this week, but just as he gets more and more reps, live reps this season, it's just got to slowly correct itself, and he'll get used to it. I really do think he will. The encouraging part to me was I do think he was seeing the right things out there. And as I've been saying all week, I feel like the worst thing you could possibly have for a quarterback's development in the first game is interior pressure. And it was consistent the entire game. But that's a personnel, that's a front office coaching thing. They got to get that figured out ASAP, because Caleb has zero control over that, who's playing in front of him. And they can't, that's not good for his development the rest of the season if they can't get that fixed inside.
Do you guys think so? Works. I'm expecting a rotation again on Sunday at right guard. I'm with you. I never understand rotating offensive linemen. I never understand switching offensive lineman positions. Like I never get it. And I feel like every offensive line coach we've dealt with has done it. Move guys around, rotate guys, try to get your best 5. Like I want the same 5 guys playing their position they're best at just every snap.
But that's why it happens, Kevin. They don't have the best 5.
Right. Well, do you think that I wonder if, because Ryan Bates had essentially 1 week of practice before this game. And I wonder if week 3 is he starting?
Maybe
like does he need
2?
We do, or I mean, I know most people are going to disagree, or week 3 is Nate Davis just going to play 100% of snaps because they've realized that he's a better option there. I think you got to figure it out. But Hoge, to your point too about the personnel and the inaccuracy, you know what helps a rookie quarterback if he's having some accuracy issues is giving him a 6'6" reliable tight end to throw to more often.
Yeah.
That I'm not
talked about this. Yeah.
I'm not a football coach like you guys are. And I know this has been a big topic during the week, but
you're a life coach, Kevin. You're my life coach.
Well, I was left tackle on a pretty successful flag football team in college. No big deal or anything, but
nice. Left tackle.
You had left tackles in flag football?
Yeah.
Aren't
We
there
played a
like
3-man. We had
3
3-man front.
linemen?
Yeah, we like to, we like to bulldoze teams.
Just went full
We don't.
power in flag football. I don't even think that's
I
legal.
I think our problem was that we did because when we started getting like farther into into the bracket, we started seeing teams that would spread out and just have one guy snapping the ball and 5 guys go out for
Yeah.
passes. We're like, oh,
Yeah.
well, we didn't have enough fast players do that, so we would go 3 wide, 3 on the line, and a quarterback.
And run the ball.
We did have a lot of quarterback run
Just
plays.
yeah, it was weird. These teams were like spreading out and everybody was running routes. Like, what game is this?
It was very odd.
It's
Yeah.
flag football. No, we agree with you on the tight end thing. We were talking about that earlier. It's just that seems like one of the easiest corrections Shane Waldron can make going into week 2.
You also had this interesting observation in your film review about Kari Blasingame's usage. Every play that he played just wasn't a good play.
Yeah.
He kind of listed them for us.
Yeah, I don't know, like, I try to be careful, Johnsy, to, like, okay, well, we know the one play we can say was his fault, probably, right? The play action where Keenan Allen was open and Blasingame misses that block.
Can I
Okay.
interject real quick on that,
Yeah.
though? I don't
Yes.
like how they lined him up. So they
I
put him
agree.
in motion, but they basically lined him up like a tight end on the wing. And when you have a fast DB coming off the edge, that's not a advantageous. I would much
Angle.
rather, if you're going to motion him across, have him back up like he's a fullback. And
Yeah.
he's got much better angle and spacing to pick up a defensive back. When you put him that close to the line of scrimmage, which is not a place he's totally used to being, it's just a bad, to me, it was not a great play. He needs to make the block. And if he makes the block, that would have been a big hit, by the way.
Mhm.
Because Caleb would have gotten that throw off. That was the one where Keenan was wide open.
Yes.
This is Waldron's offense, though. Like, he didn't have a fullback in Seattle. He used tight ends in these roles.
Well, and what worries me is, Kevin, you saying that, like, or pointing out in your film piece that basically every time Kari Blasingham was on the field, it didn't go well. That's like the complete opposite of how it used to be in the past.
Correct.
Like,
Correct.
last year, I specifically remember talking like midseason, put Blasingham on the field more because when he's on the field, the running game is dominant. So that is concerning. He's the same player. So were you using him differently? Like, are you trying to ask him to do different things than what his strengths have already been proven to be? I don't like that.
Well, I'll run through the plays. You had a toss to DeAndre Swift on 2nd and 4 went for 1 yard. On 3rd and 1, Khalil Herbert ran for no gain. And then you had the play action pass that was deflected where Blasingame was beat in pass pro. You had a toss to DeAndre Swift that went for a loss of 3 yards. And then there was the Wildcat run to Swift where Blasingame was in. That was a 3-yard gain. So you're right. Like, I mean, yeah, if you go through last year and even the year before, and like you were looking at personnel, like when Blasingame was out there, usually good things happened. I also wonder too, guys, like, so the Travis Homer usage, like I get he was your 3rd down back. Roshan's out. You trust Homer and pass pro. But did you guys notice, like, was it late 3rd or early 4th when they went hurry up after a 3rd down play? And that kept Homer on the field. It also kept Kmet on the bench because Everett was on the field. So you had, and the plays were fine. Like, it wasn't like they kept moving the ball a little bit. But I thought that was also a little like, I don't know if that's on Caleb, if that's on Shane Waldron. Like, I get that Caleb's comfortable in the hurry up, and I have no problem mixing it up. But you want to have DJ, Rome, Keenan, presumably Cole, and Swift if you're going to be running that 2-minute stuff. You would think.
Yeah, you said that was late in the game, right?
Because I want to say.
I wonder if that was just the OC giving into his quarterback, because you could tell that was kind of building where Caleb. This was maybe a little bit more obvious to see on the TV, but you could tell he wanted to go. He wanted to get on the ball, and there were other times where he was like motioning like that, and they weren't doing that. So I wonder if after they got that 3rd down, Shane was finally just like, "All right, man, do your thing," and then it was actually personnel.
And to the credit of the offense, like I'm looking right now, so they ran 4 plays in a row, and they gained 6, 7, 8, and 4 yards. So I mean, it worked. Like, so maybe I shouldn't be as critical, but again, like this is just again your personnel situation and figuring out like you want your best players on the field as much as possible. Simple as that.
Before we move to defense, any other Caleb Williams notable offensive observations before we move on?
No, Johnsy, let's go to the defense.
What do you got?
I was going to say, we're like 35 minutes into this thing. It feels like the Bears lost based on the conversation we've been having so far.
Let's talk about the players that helped the team win now.
You guys talked about this on Monday, and I wrote this after the game. Like, it was wild to write out those statistics and realize you're writing about Caleb Williams. Like, every offensive number, like I'm so used to doing things like that. But I will say, I'm used to writing stories like that after a loss. Like there are so many of those really, really bad games that we've covered, and they lose those games. But again, it goes back to the 0 turnovers thing. That's a kind of a big deal. Defensive side of the ball, guys. Let me give you a number here about EPA. I know you guys are big EPA guys. That stands for expected points added. Don't ask me how they calculate it or what it really means, but it's important.
But I'm going to use it right now. Go ahead.
I'm going to use it.
It does make sense. I like EPA, but I'm with you. I don't know how it gets computed.
I love using it. I don't. Yeah. Well, essentially, the idea is how many expected points by each play, and then you can kind of have a cumulative score on that. So the Bears defense plus special teams EPA was the best of the Eberflus era. The defense alone was the second best of Eberflus era. But then I thought to myself, that second half defense was so good, right? How good was it? I'm glad you guys asked. The second half defense EPA was 22.35. Again, don't really know what that number. The expected points added were 22.3. The defense in the second half added that many points to whatever EPA. Okay, I'm explaining this really well.
They kind of did. They finished with 24 after.
It's true.
Losing
the second half defense was the best second half defense by any team in football in the last 3 seasons. Second best. Yeah. I said best, second best.
Well, that makes sense because honestly, the defense wasn't great in the first half. It was fine, but it wasn't.
That's why I kind of wanted to look at the post halftime. It was that was incredible. And Will Levis, 32nd out of 32 quarterbacks in his EPA when he was facing the blitz. So obviously, when Matt Eberflus dialed up pressure, it worked. And the guy I focused on in this film piece, and I assume you guys have talked about him, was Andrew Billings was everywhere.
We haven't yet, actually.
97, just like, did you guys see when they moved him to end for 1 or 2 plays?
No, but I saw when they moved Gervon Dexter to end, and he had a really nice rush.
Yeah, there was a play where they moved Billings to end, and you're kind of like, what are you doing? But the big man can get after the quarterback. He had 4 quarterback pressures, the second most in his career. He had a run stop for a yard, 2 quarterback hits, and a tackle for loss. And what was also interesting was throughout that game, he was second in defensive line snaps behind DeMarcus Walker. Now, there's further questions to ask about Montez Sweat's playing time, but Billings specifically, I thought was just a battering ram. And I think, the film piece, I tried to focus on overreactions. So we talk about overreactions on offense, where everyone's like doom or gloom, about Shane Waldron and the offensive line and Caleb Williams. The flip side is you could overreact to the defense and say, oh my God, this defense is better than we even imagined. And I think that Andrew Billings is an example of how good it could be, because if Andrew Billings is playing at that level and he's not even one of your, 5 best players on defense, think about what that means for everybody else.
And I don't think that's a bad offensive line either. There's top 10 picks on that line. You got good receivers out there. I know DeAndre Hopkins isn't what he was years ago, but he's still a threat. Calvin Ridley, still a good receiver. Will Levis, it came down to him in a sense. Was TJ Edwards all over the field as much as he seemed to be as we were watching live? He seemed everywhere.
He did. And the thing I love about watching TJ Edwards is a guy catches a pass in his vicinity and he's just tackled. Right? Now, he and Edmonds both missed a tackle on that long run on our sideline where the press box was.
Yeah.
That was just, and that was a rough play. And then obviously, I think it was Nick Moriano pointed out too, the personnel in the game on the touchdown run was not ideal.
Booker in?
Yeah. It was not.
I think he was, because he got.
They ran right at him. I remember correctly.
And Booker only played 6 defensive snaps.
Right. Was that how long was that run? It was 22, right? No,
I got it right here.
26. So here's who was on that field: Byron Cowart, who just got called up from the practice squad for the game, Chris Williams, Austin Booker, and Montez Sweat. And they obviously went in the opposite direction of Sweat.
Yeah.
So yeah, Booker, Cowart, Williams were the guys in the field for that play and on the D line. But yeah, John, so I thought Edwards had a good game, really good game. And I wonder too, it was probably a rare game. You guys, I'm sure knows Jack Sanborn was on the field for 3 snaps.
Yeah.
So that was, I mean, Titans have a good receiving core, so they were just an 11, if not 4 wide, like most of the game. But you got to imagine more often, Sanborn's gonna be out there more often. The question then would be on that drive where they're getting gashed. Do you take that chance and put him out there? But the flip side is Kyler Gordon's not like a bad run defender.
No,
I mean,
he's
he's
awesome.
not Sanborn in the box, but Kyler Gordon's one of the best probably run defending corners in football.
Yeah, and I'm not
So
making excuses, but the Bears defense was on the field a lot early on in that game. I made note of the in fact, they probably have that right here too. There was at the end of the second quarter. So at halftime, I made note of the time of possession, and it was 18 minutes and 56 seconds for the Titans compared to just 11 minutes and 4 seconds for the Bears. So I think it got to a point where that defense was getting tired, and probably also explained why those guys might have been the defensive line combination was on the field at that point. Because eventually, when you're those big defensive linemen, you just can't. You're not going to play 100% of the snaps. It's not how it works in any league. You got to have some type of rotation there, especially when you're on the field for a long drive.
Yeah. There was a 20-minute in real time gap between the Bears having the football after the Velus Jones fumble, which is a long time in football time.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Well, catch the kickoff return.
Don't kick it back at your opponent.
And
Hey, have you guys ever seen that before?
I've seen it kicked, but not like kicked like that.
20 years. I've seen, because like muff kickoffs are kind of rare, and they should be even more rare now because nobody's running at you when the ball's in the air.
But usually you just lose field position because you drop it and you pick it up, and then you've lost the time, or you've allowed the coverage to get downfield, and so you just get tackled and you have bad field position. That's usually what happens. It does not happen a lot where you muff it and the other team actually ends up getting the ball because you kick it around. And
that was incredibly fluky.
In this case, you basically just punted it to the other team.
Have you guys had the Velus conversation?
We have. What's your thoughts?
Well, I guess I should continue being a Velus truther because that's where I've planted my flag.
Oh, you've been accused of being a Velus truther. Yeah,
I've been kind of the Velus stan. Here's where I'll say this, and Hoge, you can help me out with this if I'm off. Let's say you take him off kickoff return, okay, and you give him, as you guys talked about earlier, 4 or 5 snaps in the backfield, okay, and then you're going to give him. He's on the field for every punt, right? He was on the punt return, the punt block team. Okay, so that's however many snaps a game. Was he on there for kickoff?
He played 41% of the special team snaps.
Okay, so here's my question, Coach Hoge. Tyler Scott doesn't play that role, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Tyler Scott is not giving you whatever they like from Velus in the backfield, right? So if you're deciding between Velus Jones and Tyler Scott, and I don't know if that's the decision, I would still keep Velus up because he gives you those snaps. Now, the flip side is if you need, this week might be different if Rome is out, and you need Tyler Scott on the field as a wide receiver, maybe that makes it an easier decision. But I think if you're just looking at like what he gives you on special teams and what he gives you in the backfield, like Tyler Scott's not the easy replacement there. So I feel like if everybody's healthy, the Velus is still going to be active, even if he's not returning kicks.
Yeah,
where does Roshan Johnson enter that conversation?
Yeah,
that's a good point. Yeah,
I think Roshan could fill a lot of the roles. They had Velus rushing on punts, like punt return. He was rushing. We know he can be on punt. like, and what we were talking about earlier is that at some point you sort of got to send a message too, not only to him but to the locker room that you're playing the best players. Like, it's one thing for Velus to make this team, but I don't need Velus to play 4 snaps on offense when he can give him a couple weeks here to continue to develop as a running back. Like, you don't have to cut him, but let him learn the position more.
Well, they did that in 2022,
weeks.
so it's not like there's precedent for them to do that. I think you're right. I mean, 2022, remember he sat out like 6 or 7 weeks, and then he came back. Was the Atlanta game, and he had a long kickoff.
Wasn't he inactive last year too? A few weeks
at times.
After
Yeah, I mean,
problems?
so maybe he will be. I mean, I think there's a good point, John's, about Roshan, because I feel like he can play those roles. And again, it's not like the most important part of special teams. I just don't know how Tyler Scott factors in. Yeah, it wasn't like a great day necessarily if you're a day 3 Bears draft pick. See Sewell, Roshan, and Tyler Scott all inactive.
All right, before we get out of here, early thoughts on the Houston Texans. Johnsy, let's go to you first. Just how you feeling about this one right now on Wednesday?
Well, I know the build-up will be between Caleb Williams and CJ Stroud, as it should be. I love when you have matchups like that, as we talked about off the show, but I think it's a fun early test for Matt Eberflus's defense. This isn't Will Levis.
Oh.
Like you said, this is the quarterback the Bears could have drafted a year ago. He's kind of cementing himself as one of the top young quarterbacks in the league. Different challenge, really good receivers again, an offense that we know works better than what the Titans have. So it's a nice early test and prime time for Bears defense that sees itself as one of the league's best.
Breaking news, Tyreek Stevenson, NFC Defensive Player of the Week.
Wow.
Thank you, Will Levis.
You know what? I mean, look, great. Obviously, the pick 6. Jalen Johnson, though.
I was gonna say, like, my first reaction when you just said that was Jalen Johnson played so much better than Tyreek Stevenson. I mean, Stevenson was struggling early on in that game, and Jalen Johnson was just an island over. Now he did drop that one interception, and quite frankly, he's lucky he didn't give up a touchdown on that play because Will Levis just threw a terrible ball. But other than that one play, Jalen Johnson was lights out. And that pick 6, come on. I could have returned that for a touchdown. It will live it, not literally, by the way. Don't everybody freak out. Remember, I'm the same guy who said I couldn't pick up a yard a week ago when Cole Kmet asked me that question.
Yeah.
But you get what I'm saying. That was one of the easiest pick 6s of all time.
Also, if I remember correctly from my film session at Eberflus, you're supposed to secure the ball through the paint. Like you got like all the way through, not just through the goal line, through the paint.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And that ball was not secured through the paint. But congrats to Tyreek Stevenson.
That's
Defensive Player of the Week.
Okay.
Hey, it was the game-winning touchdown.
It's a big play. It's a big
Huge play.
I'll hand it. All right.
Houston Texans are a good football team. And I said this to somebody the other day who asked, like, are you worried the Bears will get routed on Sunday night after what happened? And I just think in general, this defense is going to be too good for this team to have their, like, we've seen some really bad primetime games over the years and the Bears are outmatched. And maybe they're outmatched in this one in all 3 phases, but I think the defense is still too good to let things get out of control.
Yeah, that's one of my early impressions. Is just 6.5 seems like too much. Take the teams out just and look at what the personnel on the field is. When you have a defense that good and special teams performing like they did on Sunday, 6.5 just seems like too much. For that to be the case. Now that being said, my other early impression is kind of what we spent the first more than half of the podcast talking about. Offense got to step it up this week because you're not winning like you did against Tennessee with less than 100 yards passing. You got to step it up. You got to figure it out because if you do that this week, it still might be close. You might still cover, but you're not winning. You're not going to go down to Houston and win without an offensive touchdown. So, and can we set the bar to like maybe 2 offensive touchdowns? That'd be nice. Not just 1. All right. Kevin, thanks for jumping on. I know everybody's got to get to
boys.
Hallis Hall. and hear what Matt Eberflus and Caleb Williams have to say today. We will be back Friday with our official preview episode for the weekend. Special guest, the new senior national reporter.
Ooh, maybe.
Oh no, we're having a pivot already.
Yes, we have to.
She goes senior on us, and now we're canceling Hoge
Stacey
Jahns.
Dales will be on the show soon. We're just trying to confirm the time.
Okay. Well, all right. So little teaser there. We were thinking it was going to be Friday. Maybe it's not. Regardless, we'll have a guest. We will have a guest. We'll have the game broken down for you, as you know we always will on Friday morning. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you're reading these guys in The Athletic, theathletic.com/Hoge Jahns. You can find me on CHGO every single day. Find all the merch at HogeJahns.com. We are out of here. We will talk to you on Friday.
See ya.